I have a confession. I really struggle with the reading we've just heard. These verses are known as the poem of the Divine Warrior, and for me, that's the problem. I really wrestle with the imagery of God as warrior, not least because it's so foreign an experience of God as far as I'm concerned. And yet, if we are to read the Bible holistically, it's impossible to deny God's portrayal as warrior in both the Old and New Testaments. This week we're thinking about the theme recreation. At the heart of that theme for us as Christians is the cross. In it we see how Christ, present when life was first breathed into the earth, dies and rises again. Is recreated, if you like. Seen in this way, rather than a moment of abject defeat, the cross represents God's victory. Indeed, the ultimate victory of the divine warrior, as pictured in our poem. Indeed, there are more similarities than you may at first think. One commentator describes our reading today as a poem that dramatically depicts a God who does not retreat into divine obscurity, high and lifted above the messiness of human conflict. It is a poem celebrating the God who is moved into action in the face of injustice, a God who hears and responds to the pleas of the afflicted. That's certainly a picture of God we recognise when we think about the cross. Certainly, behind this poem, we find a community who are suffering even though they're now back in their own land. They simply can't find someone who's going to be the Messiah figure, the agent of God's deliverance. Figures have come and gone. They have been left disappointed. But here in this reading there's a hint of the figure who is yet to come. There in verse 3 of the Divine Warrior poem we are told, "I have trodden the winepress alone, and from the peoples no one was with me." Couldn't that be a prophecy? A prophecy which introduces us to the saving role of Christ? Certainly others have thought so. Going right back to St. Augustine and the early fathers of the Church, this is just one of several Bible passages which underpin the idea of Christ in the winepress. This idea develops through the Middle Ages and, unusually, was used by both Protestants and Catholics after the Reformation. And it's more contemporary than you might think. How many times have we sung, "Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is tramping out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored." For me, this motif of Christ in the winepress is best illustrated in this engraving by Hieronymus Vierix. Just take a few moments to look at it for yourselves. There are three images which particularly catch my eye. Firstly, in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see the three children. For me, they're representing us, the children of God. But look at their emotions. Happy, prayerful, maybe even slightly disengaged from the rest of the scene. For in the centre there is something brutal going on, so brutal that the children simply can't take it in. Secondly, on the right hand side you have a figure, God the Father, twisting a screw. It's worth pausing for the moment to look at what is truly going on. In the wine presses of the Middle Ages, it was quite normal for the screw to cause the wooden roof of the press to push down on the grapes. Here there is no roof. Instead, the screw presses down on the grapes through the cross and through the body on the cross, Jesus himself. Look again at the figure of Jesus. It's not just that Jesus is trampling the wine, as is common in this motif. Here the artist shows how Jesus' blood is caught within the winepress. The wine is made up not only as a product of the grapes, but of Jesus' own blood too. Whatever our precise understanding, the blood of Christ is key to recognizing how Christ continues to feed us, recreating us to be more like him. On this Passion Sunday, let's take a moment to fix our minds on the crucified Christ. Let's give thanks for his sacrifice for us and use this time to feed on him. Amen.